Hello everyone! I'm so happy to see you all again in a new video on my channel. Today, we continue with the next episode in the story of Hoài Ca and Officer Hùng, a journey filled with love, perseverance, and hope as they fight to help little Tony recover. After many days of effort, thanks to Duet's support and the dedicated care of Tony's preschool teacher, the little boy has started to show heartwarming progress. He can focus better, call out "Mom," and smile more brightly than before. But will this journey still hold challenges ahead? Join me through the entire video today to feel the touching healing journey of this small family in the countryside, where love, patience, and faith light up each day for Hoài Ca, Hùng, and Tony. Morning sunlight gently blanketed the village road after several days of rain. The last drops of dew still clung to the grass blades, sparkling like tiny crystals. Sparrows chirped on the tiled roofs, while the soft breeze rustled through the row of areca palms at the school gate, carrying the faint, earthy fragrance left behind by the rain. On the small path leading to the classroom, the quiet footsteps of Hoài Ca and Tony blended into the peaceful rhythm of the morning. Tony held tightly to his mother's hand, walking slowly, his little eyes darting around as if searching for something familiar. He wore a light blue school uniform, his bangs still damp with dew, and on his shoulder hung a small, worn backpack that Hoài Ca had patched up many times. His tiny plastic sandals made soft, squelching sounds each time he stepped through a puddle on the schoolyard. Hoài Ca bent down and gently brushed his hair. "Come on, sweetheart, we're almost there. Remember to greet your teacher, okay?" Tony looked up at his mother, blinked a few times, and nodded softly. Just then, Teacher Ly stepped out of the classroom, holding a stack of crayon drawings that still smelled faintly of wax. Seeing the two of them, she smiled warmly. "Tony's been improving a lot, Miss Ca. He's learning to sit still longer now and even starts to focus when coloring." Hoài Ca froze for a second, her eyes lighting up with surprise and emotion. "Really? At home, he forgets so easily. I have to remind him again and again." Teacher Ly nodded gently. "That's all right. Patience is what matters most. I'll spend a few extra minutes each day working with him. What he needs most is someone at home to keep practicing with him. Children like Tony just need love and persistence." Hearing those words, warmth spread through Hoài Ca's chest. All the exhaustion, all the sleepless nights watching her son struggle to speak, it all melted away in that moment. She bent down, touched Tony's cheek, her voice trembling. "Keep trying, my love. Mom believes you can do it." The boy didn't answer. He only looked at her with those clear, innocent eyes, then reached out his tiny hand to clasp her finger, a small but firm grip. Sunlight streamed through the classroom window, shining on their hair still wet with dew, making the scene shimmer with quiet tenderness. Outside the school gate, Hùng leaned against his old motorbike, watching them closely. His heart tightened, filled with affection and regret. All those years working far from home, all the moments he'd missed. Now, just seeing Hoài Ca walk their son to class made his chest ache. When she stepped out, wiping the sweat from her forehead, Hùng walked over and said softly, "The doctor called. Tony has a follow-up this afternoon. I managed to get half a day off. Let's go together." She nodded, her eyes glistening, but her smile still there. "Okay, let's leave early. It gets crowded in the afternoon." On their way home, they walked slowly. On both sides of the road, the young rice fields glistened in shades of fresh green after the rain. The scent of wet soil mixed with wild grass, crisp and familiar. Hoài Ca murmured, almost to herself, "If only our boy could be as healthy as other kids." Hùng said nothing. He simply placed his hand on her shoulder, squeezing gently. He knew some pain didn't need words, only love deep enough to endure it together. From afar, The school drum echoed, and children poured into the yard, laughing and playing. Hoài Ca turned back to look, a small light flickering in her eyes. She didn't know how long or hard the road ahead would be. But at least, this morning, a new seed of hope had quietly begun to grow in the hearts of the young couple. The afternoon sun faded softly behind the bamboo grove at the edge of the village. The breeze carried the scent of ripening rice, mingling with the clucks of chickens returning to their coop, a familiar melody of peaceful countryside life. After the morning market, Hoài Ca finished tidying her stall and joined Hùng in the garden. She carefully trimmed the yellow leaves, mounded soil around the vegetable roots, while Hùng checked the chicken coop, fed the pigs, and changed the water in the fish pond. Every task, no matter how small, was done in quiet harmony, as if they were planting tiny seeds of faith into their own lives. When the sun slipped behind the hill, they returned home. Dinner was ready. The warm aroma of salted eggplants and mixed green soup filled the small kitchen. Tony sat on the mat in the corner, holding a stubby colored pencil, scribbling in an old notebook Du had given him. The lines were messy, uneven, but to Hoài Ca, they were more precious than any treasure. After washing the dishes and cleaning up, Hùng pulled out a small chair and sat by the table. The yellow light from the bulb shone softly across his sunburned face. He called gently, "Come here, son. Let's study a bit with Dad." Tony hesitated, stepping closer, his eyes filled with curiosity and a hint of shyness. Hùng opened the notebook, pointed at the first letter, and said softly, "This is the letter A. Let's say it together, a dot." Tony watched closely, his lips trembling. The sound came out small and broken, but clear. Hoài Ca, sitting beside them, clasped her trembling hands together. Then she laughed, her voice cracking, yet bright with joy. "Yes, that's right, my love. One more time, he repeated, louder and steadier this time. Laughter filled the little house, blending with the scent of warm rice, pickled eggplant, and the fresh evening breeze drifting through the window. Hoài Ca looked at her husband, eyes glistening with emotion. Hùng tried to stay calm, but the corners of his lips curved slightly, his eyes shimmering with tears. He never imagined that such a small sound could make his heart tremble so deeply. "My son, you did it," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Tony didn't fully understand, but he looked up at his parents and smiled, a pure, radiant smile. And they all smiled together, a simple smile, yet full of faith. Outside, the new moon rose. Its soft light fell through the curtain onto the little study table where the messy notebook still lay open. On the page, the letter A wasn't perfectly shaped. But to them, it was the very first step of the miracle they had always dreamed of. Sunday. The sky was a clear blue, freshly washed after last night's rain. White clouds drifted lazily, their reflections glimmering on the drying rice fields, where a few herons wandered gracefully in search of food. The wind passed through the row of areca palms by the gate, swaying the laundry that Hoài Ca had hung to dry. The fluttering fabric looked like little butterflies dancing in the early sunlight. At dawn, the hum of a motorbike broke the quiet. Du arrived at the gate with a bright smile, carrying a paper bag filled with fresh pastries from the town market, still warm and fragrant with butter and roasted sesame. Du, such a nice day. How about we take Tony to the park? He's been working hard all week. He deserves a bit of sunshine and fresh air. Hùng, washing his hands in the yard, looked up and smiled, his deep voice calm and kind. Yeah, that's a good idea. The boy needs to get out more, can't stay indoors all the time. From the kitchen, Hoài Ca stepped out, her hands dusted with rice flour. She wiped them on her apron and said gently, "Go on, I'll stay and tidy up. You two take him, but be careful, don't let him fall, okay?" Hùng nodded, and Du chuckled softly. Don't worry, I promise I'll keep an eye on him." The old motorbike roared to life, a faint cloud of white smoke rising into the golden morning air. The village road was shaded by bamboo trees, lined with lush vegetable fields. The scent of wet soil mingled with wildflowers. Tony sat in the middle, his small hands wrapped around Duet's waist, his soft hair blowing wildly in the wind. His laughter rang out, pure and bright, echoing down the road, making the villagers on their way to market smile as they passed. At the small town park, they stopped beneath a large crepe myrtle tree. Purple petals blanketed the ground like a soft carpet. Tony squealed with delight, running toward the slide. He climbed up clumsily, slid down, and tumbled into laughter. Hung stood watching, his eyes softening, the first true smile in a long while spreading across his face since Tony's illness began. He spoke quietly, his voice blending with the breeze. "He's getting livelier lately, even talks more with his eyes now." Du sat beside him on a stone bench, smiling faintly. "Yeah, maybe it's the teacher's help, or maybe it's just having you both by his side every day. I just want him to have a normal childhood, like any other kid." Hung stayed silent. He looked at the man beside him, the man who had once lost this child, yet had now returned, gentle and patient in ways he hadn't expected. There was no bitterness anymore, only quiet understanding, shared by two men who both loved the same little boy named Tony. The wind blew softly, carrying the scent of dry grass and the faint chime of a wind bell from the park's pavilion. Tony played with a few other children, his face flushed, hair covered in dust, but his eyes shining bright. Du took a bottle of water from his bag and called out, "Hey, buddy, come drink some water before you keep playing." Tony ran over, sweat glistening on his forehead, smiling from ear to ear. He reached for the bottle, looked up, and in a tiny, trembling voice said clearly, "Dad." The word was soft as a breeze, yet it made the whole world fall silent. Du froze, the bottle shaking slightly in his hand. His eyes filled with tears, his lips pressed tight as he tried to hold back the surge of emotion. Hung stood still, watching, a gentle smile forming at the corner of his mouth, his eyes filled with quiet compassion. No one spoke. No one claimed anything. Between them, only the rustle of wind through the trees remained, and Tony's innocent laughter echoing beneath the endless blue sky. By late afternoon, the sun tilted over the fields where straw was being dried. The air smelled of burning rice husks, and the sound of threshing machines hummed in the distance. On the old motorbike, Tony had fallen asleep on Duet's shoulder, his small hands clutching the hem of his shirt. Hung slowed down, glancing at the rearview mirror, seeing the man gently holding the sleeping boy, his head bowed, afraid even to breathe too loudly. The golden light of sunset spilled across the road, and in that quiet, fleeting moment, Hung felt an unfamiliar peace settle in his heart. He no longer thought about the past, nor feared the future. He simply knew Tony was loved, truly loved, in the way that defines the word family. Maybe this is exactly what he needs most, he thought and smiled. A quiet smile, carrying the tenderness of an entire sky within a father's heart. The sky was a clear, endless blue, and white clouds drifted lazily with the wind. The road leading to the district town was dry after many sunny days. On both sides stretched fields of newly harvested rice, the golden straw spread out in the sunlight. The morning rays shimmered on the river's surface, reflecting the shadows of three people riding slowly on an old motorbike toward a small clinic at the edge of town. Tony sat in the middle, his head resting on his mother's shoulder, softly humming a song his teacher had taught him. Hoài Ca smiled gently, her hair fluttering in the wind, her heart strangely light. Hung, who was driving, glanced at them through the mirror now and then, seeing his wife and child behind him warmed his eyes and steadied his breath. Gone were the heavy, silent days of fear and despair. Now, Tony's laughter filled the spaces that had once ached with worry. When they arrived, the clinic looked just as it always had, simple and quiet, with a few pots of orchids blooming on the window ledge. The doctor, a kind-looking man with silver hair and round glasses, was reviewing patient files. When he saw them, he smiled warmly. "Ah, here you are. It's been a while since I last saw Tony." The little boy hid briefly behind his mother, but the moment he spotted the familiar box of toys on the table, he grinned and ran to pick up a small plastic animal. The doctor crouched down, waving gently. "Hello there, young man. Come here, let me take a look at you." Tony lifted his bright eyes and walked over confidently. The doctor tossed him a small ball, testing his reflexes. Tony reached out quickly and caught it, bursting into laughter, a sound so pure that it seemed to fill the entire room with light. The doctor straightened up, smiling with warmth. "He's doing much better. Quick reflexes, good eye contact, and he's starting to communicate more naturally. Keep this up, in a few months, he'll be at the same level as other kids his age." Hoài Ca covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. She tried to hold them back, but her emotions overflowed at those words. All the sleepless nights, all the guilt and worry, everything was soothed in that single moment of hope. Hung stood beside her, his rough hand resting gently on her shoulder, giving a quiet squeeze, a wordless comfort. He said nothing, only nodded to the doctor, his eyes glimmering with gratitude. Tony turned to his parents, holding up the toy proudly, his voice still a little slurred but clear. "Mom, Dad, look." Two simple words, but they broke the silence in the most beautiful way. Hoài Ca burst into tears, while Hung smiled through glistening eyes. The doctor, too, nodded quietly, his expression glowing with genuine happiness. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, lighting up Tony's face. His hair glowed like honey in the light, and his innocent smile seemed to wash away every shadow that had ever hung over their small family. Hoài Ca wiped her tears and gently gathered her son into her arms. Behind her, Hung reached out, softly patting Tony's back. No one spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the clock, steady, peaceful as their eyes stayed fixed on their son, where a true miracle was quietly growing day by day. Outside, the evening breeze stirred the door, carrying with it the faint scent of milk flowers from a distant street. It was an ordinary day to the world, but to them, it was the most unforgettable one in their long journey called Healing Tony. Thanks to love, patience, and the hearts that came together, Tony has taken his very first steps on the road to healing. Every word he speaks, every glance, every tiny smile, is a miracle that Hoài Ca, Hung, and Du have nurtured with all their hearts. But how long will this joy last? When life still holds countless challenges ahead. The rising costs of treatment, the daily struggle to make ends meet, and the unexpected twists of fate waiting at the next turn. Will this little family have enough faith and love to overcome it all for Tony and for the simple happiness they've built together? Stay tuned for episode 7 to find out what happens next, when hope is no longer just a word, but a long, heartfelt journey of love, strength, and belief. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to continue following Hoài Ca, Hung, Du, and Tony on their journey called Hope.
Hello mọi người, lại là mình đây. Hiện tại thì mình đang làm video, mình đang cố gắng để có thể hoàn thành sớm nhất có thể, đăng tải lên vào lúc 7 giờ tối nay để cho mọi người xem, và hy vọng rằng mọi người sẽ ủng hộ cho kênh của mình nhiều hơn. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều vì trong thời gian qua mọi người đã ủng hộ cho kênh của mình. Hiện tại thì mình vẫn đang trong quá trình edit video và vẫn chưa có hoàn thành mọi người ạ, và cần phải quay thêm 1 phút nối đuôi này để nối vào nữa. Mình hy vọng rằng mọi người sẽ yêu thích video của mình nhiều hơn và ủng hộ cho kênh của mình nhiều hơn nữa. Nếu như mọi người có ý kiến đóng góp gì thì mọi người có thể để lại ở phần bình luận. Mình sẽ cố gắng đọc và trả lời, cũng như là tiếp nhận những ý kiến đóng góp của mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều vì đã luôn đồng hành cùng với kênh của mình. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video sau. Bye bye.